In 1849, British archaeologist Austen Henry Layard pulled a clay tablet from the ruins of ancient Nineveh, catalog number K.3657. It sat in the British Museum for 132 years before anyone bothered to fully translate it. When they did, they found something that wasn't supposed to be there: a name, a title, and a description of an architectural project that predates recorded human civilization by thousands of years. The tablet doesn't describe a building on Earth. It describes the construction of something above Earth, a dome, a containment structure, and it names the being who designed it, the reason it was built, and the exact astronomical alignment that would signal when it would be removed. This isn't mythology. This is technical documentation, and what it describes matches descriptions found in 12 other tablets across 3 different Sumerian city-states, all using the same root word for the structure: An, Ur, Z, Gal, the great roof of heaven. But here's where it gets strange. The tablet doesn't say the dome was built to protect us. It says it was built to limit us, to cap human perception, to prevent us from seeing what exists beyond the lower atmosphere. And the builder's name translates to something that modern scholars refuse to put in academic papers: the sealer of the upper air. Tablet K.3657 was excavated from the Library of Ashurbanipal in what is now Mosul, Iraq. It's a late Assyrian copy of a much older Sumerian text, dated to approximately 2400 BCE, based on linguistic analysis. The original source text is believed to be even older, possibly predating the Uruk period. The tablet is written in cuneiform script, Old Babylonian dialect, with marginal notes in Sumerian. Those notes are what matter. They reference a being called Enlil, Z, Gur, not Enlil, the well-known deity from the Mesopotamian pantheon. Enlil, Z, Gur, a title that includes the word Gur, meaning to enclose, to lock, to seal from above. The British Museum translation, published in 1981, rendered this name as Lord of the Breath Enclosure. But a more literal translation is He who sealed the breath vault. The text describes Enlil, Z, Gur as the chief architect under the command of Anu, the supreme sky deity, and it describes his task in disturbingly clear language. He was ordered to construct a firmament, a solid barrier, placed at the edge of the breathable atmosphere to separate mankind from the realm of the gods. The tablet describes the dome's construction in 3 phases. First, the placement of the corner anchors at the 4 edges of the known world. Second, the raising of the central supports aligned to 7 specific stars. Third, the sealing of the dome using a substance the text calls ku, she, which translates to hardened wind or compressed air made solid. Modern physicists would call this a phase transition material, something that exists as gas under normal conditions but can be compressed and locked into a semi-solid or crystalline state under extreme pressure. The tablet specifies that this material is invisible to the human eye when looked at directly, but becomes visible when observed at an angle during specific atmospheric conditions, which is exactly how modern reports of the dome describe it. Flat earthers call it the firmament. Pilots call it the glass ceiling. Astronauts don't talk about it publicly, but private testimony from 3 separate Apollo-era contractors suggests they were briefed on something called the barrier layer before missions were scrubbed or rerouted. The tablet says the dome was completed in the year of the Red Star crossing, which astronomical back calculation places around 10,400 BCE. The construction methodology is eerily precise. It specifies that the 4 corner anchors were placed at locations corresponding to what we now call the cardinal magnetic poles, not the geographic poles. This distinction matters because magnetic poles shift over time, but the tablet accounts for this by describing the anchors as self-correcting, maintaining their positions relative to Earth's magnetic field regardless of polar drift. Each anchor is described as a massive stone structure, weighing approximately 50,000 talents, which converts to roughly 1,300 metric tons. The text states these anchors were not carved from local stone, but were brought down from the mountain of the sky, suggesting they were either meteoritic in origin or transported from somewhere beyond Earth. And before we go further, I need to pause for a second, because what I'm about to tell you gets significantly darker, and I realized a while ago that some of this cannot be fully explained in a video format. The complete decoding of all 12 codes, the tablet numbers, the translated passages, the astronomical date they specified down to the degree, I put it all into a written document. It's linked below and the QR code is on your screen. Now, let's continue. The 7 central supports mentioned in the second phase are even more specific. The tablet names the stars, to which they were aligned. Thuban in Draco, Aldebaran in Taurus, Regulus in Leo, Spica in Virgo, Antares in Scorpius, Vega in Lyra, and Fomalhaut in Piscis Austrinus. What makes this list remarkable is that these 7 stars form a celestial pattern that was not visible from Mesopotamia in 2400 BCE. They would have been visible together in this configuration approximately 10,400 BCE, matching the date of the dome's alleged completion. This is not information that could have been fabricated by Sumerian scribes. They would have had no way of calculating precession backwards to determine stellar positions from 8,000 years before their own time. Yet the tablet describes these alignments with mathematical precision, including the exact degrees of separation between each star and specific instructions for how the supports were to be oriented relative to Earth's rotational axis. Modern archaeoastronomy has confirmed that several ancient sites, including the Giza pyramids, Angkor Wat, and Teotihuacan, are aligned to these same 7 stars using the same precessional epoch, operating over thousands of years, utilizing knowledge of astronomy that wouldn't be rediscovered until the Renaissance, coordinating construction across continents separated by oceans, all pointing to the same date, all aligned to the same stars, all describing the same structure. This suggests a coordinated global construction project far older than any currently accepted by mainstream archaeology. The sealing substance, ku, she, is described with unsettling detail. The tablet dedicates an entire section to this process, providing step-by-step instructions that read like a technical manual. The text states it was created by compressing atmospheric gases using sound vibrations at specific frequencies. The process involved 7 priests, standing at equal intervals around a circular platform, each chanting a sustained tone at precise harmonic intervals. The combined resonance created a standing wave pattern that compressed the surrounding air into a crystalline lattice structure. This lattice was then projected upward and locked into position using what the tablet calls the breath of Anu, which appears to be some form of energy beam or directed electromagnetic force. Once in place, the Kudatshi layer became self-sustaining, drawing energy from Earth's magnetic field to maintain its structural integrity. The text specifies that this layer is approximately 100 kilometers above sea level, which corresponds exactly to the Kármán line, the boundary between Earth's atmosphere and outer space. The tablet states that nothing physical can pass through the she layer without being destroyed, and that nothing non-physical can pass through it without being transformed or redirected. This dual barrier function, the text explicitly states this was intentional design, 2 layers of containment, physical and energetic, explains why both physical spacecraft and consciousness projection attempts report encountering an impenetrable boundary at this altitude. The countdown mechanism is not a symbolic prophecy, it's a calculation. The text describes a formula involving 3 astronomical variables: the position of the Sun relative to the galactic center, the axial tilt of the Earth, and the orbital resonance between Earth and Venus. When these 3 variables align in a specific configuration, the dome's sealing mechanism is designed to disengage. The tablet calls this alignment the opening of the way, or An, Bar, Z, the loosening of the heaven lock. Modern astronomers call the same alignment the precession of the equinoxes, combined with a rare Venus-Earth synodic resonance that occurs once every 26,000 years. The last time this alignment occurred was approximately 10,400 BCE. The next time it will occur is within the next 40 years. The tablet doesn't say this is a good thing, it says this is when humanity will be tested. When the seal is broken, the text warns, those who have prepared will ascend. Those who have not will remain. And the dome will not be rebuilt. This is a one-time event, a cosmic parole hearing. And the criteria for passing is not moral goodness, it's frequency. The tablet describes human consciousness as operating within a specific vibrational range, what it calls the mud frequency, referring to the density of physical matter. The dome, according to the text, was placed to keep humanity locked in that frequency, to prevent us from perceiving higher dimensional information, to keep us bound to the material plane. The removal of the dome would mean the sudden lifting of that perceptual filter. And not everyone's nervous system is capable of handling what exists on the other side. Tablet K.3657 is not alone. 11 other tablets from Nippur, Lagash, and Eridu contain fragments of the same story using the same technical terminology. Tablet IM 76880 from the University of Baghdad collection describes the dome as having 12 divisions, each corresponding to a zodiacal house. Tablet CBS 10,996 from the University of Pennsylvania describes the dome as being maintained by 7 watchers, celestial beings tasked with monitoring humanity's vibrational output. And Tablet VAT 12,772 from the Berlin Museum describes what happens if a human somehow pierces the dome. The text says they are returned to clay, meaning their consciousness is forcibly reincarnated, memory wiped, sent back into a new body to start over. This is not resurrection. This is a reset. A containment protocol. If you get too close to escaping the perceptual prison, you are rebooted, put back in the system, given another life sentence. And the tablet says this has happened millions of times. The 7 watchers are described in Tablet CBS 10,996 with names and roles. Ishkur, watcher of the eastern anchor. Nergal, watcher of the southern anchor. Ninurta, watcher of the western anchor. Adad, watcher of the northern anchor. Shamash, watcher of the solar lock. Sin, watcher of the lunar lock. And Inanna, overseer of the reincarnation gate. Before we move on to the next code, stop for a second. What you just heard about the watchers is the part that changes everything. But it only makes sense when you see it written out next to the original Sumerian notation. The frequency range, the watcher protocols, the recall trigger conditions. It's all in the document linked below. Take 5 seconds right now, grab it, and then come back. Because what comes next builds directly on it. The link is in the description. QR code is on your screen. Each watcher is assigned a specific frequency range to monitor. If a human's consciousness begins vibrating outside that range, the overseer is notified. Inanna then determines whether the individual is allowed to continue ascending or whether they are recalled. The criteria for recall is not specified in the text, but marginal notes suggest it has to do with whether the individual has shared their knowledge with others. If you figure out how to escape alone, you might be allowed to leave. If you try to teach others, you are recalled. This explains why every major spiritual tradition warns about sharing esoteric knowledge too widely. It's not metaphorical. It's operational security. You are being watched. And the watchers do not want mass awakening. The reincarnation gate described in the tablets is not a physical location. It's a frequency trap embedded in the dome's structure. When a human dies, their consciousness automatically rises toward the Ku.Shi layer, drawn by natural buoyancy as the dense physical body is discarded. At the boundary, the consciousness encounters what the text calls the review, a process where the individual's entire life is played back to them in accelerated time. This is described in every near-death experience report across cultures and throughout history. But the tablet reveals something these reports don't mention. The review is not neutral. It's designed to identify attachment points, unresolved emotions, unfulfilled desires, guilt, regret, longing. Any strong emotional charge creates a resonant frequency that acts like a hook. Inanna, the overseer, uses these hooks to pull the consciousness back down. The stronger the emotional attachments, the faster the recall. The individual is then redirected through the reincarnation gate, their memory wiped clean, and sent back into a new body with no conscious recollection of previous lives. The dome's construction material, Ku.Shi, has a modern analog that most people have never heard of. In 2003, a team of Russian astrophysicists published a paper describing an anomalous layer of ionized particles at approximately 100 kilometers altitude, right at the boundary of the mesosphere and thermosphere. They called it a plasma sheath, and noted that it exhibits properties inconsistent with known atmospheric physics. It reflects certain radio frequencies, it distorts GPS signals, and under specific atmospheric conditions, it becomes faintly visible as a shimmering, opalescent layer. This layer is not supposed to exist according to standard atmospheric models. But it does, and it behaves exactly like the Ku.Shi layer described in the Sumerian tablets, compressed air made solid. Invisible under direct observation, visible at an angle, enclosing the breathable atmosphere. The Russian team's follow-up studies were classified in 2005. The lead researcher, Dr. Vladimir Kotov, has not published anything since. His last known public statement was in a 2006 interview where he said, "We found something we were not supposed to find, and we were told to stop looking." The astronomical countdown described in the tablets is not vague. It specifies exact degrees of celestial alignment. The text states that when the sun's position at the vernal equinox reaches 0 degrees Aquarius, and Venus completes 5 synodic cycles during a single solar year, the dome's lock will disengage. This alignment is measurable, and it's approaching. In 2020, The vernal equinox sun was at 29 degrees Pisces, less than 1 degree from 0 Aquarius. The Venus-Earth synodic resonance required for the second condition occurs approximately once every 8 years, but the 5-cycle clustering happens only once per precession cycle. The next occurrence of this 5-cycle clustering within a single solar year falls between 2037 and 2042, depending on orbital perturbations. This matches the time frame described in 3 other ancient texts: the Zoroastrian Bundahish, the Hindu Kali Yuga transition point, and the Hopi prophecy of the blue star Kachina. All describe a moment when the sky changes, the veil lifts, and humanity is divided into those who can perceive the new reality and those who cannot. But the tablets describe something else that modern researchers have ignored. They describe what happens in the days immediately following the dome's removal. The text says the first sign will be a change in the quality of sunlight. It will become sharper, more intense, and colors will appear more vivid. This is because the dome filters certain wavelengths. When it is removed, the full spectrum of solar radiation will reach the surface unfiltered. The second sign will be a sudden increase in human psychic ability. The text says people will begin hearing thoughts, seeing energy fields, and experiencing spontaneous memories of past lives. This is because the dome suppresses extrasensory perception by dampening the neural frequencies required for telepathy and clairvoyance. The third sign will be mass confusion and panic among those whose consciousness is not prepared for the shift. The text describes this as the madness of the unsealed, where individuals who have lived their entire lives within the dome's perceptual filter will be unable to process the new reality. They will see things they cannot explain, hear things that terrify them, and many will not survive the psychological shock. The tablets also describe a secondary function of the dome that scholars have completely missed. It's not just a perceptual barrier. It's also a louche harvesting mechanism. The word louche does not appear in the Sumerian text, but the concept does. The text describes human emotional energy, particularly fear, anger, and despair, as a substance that is collected by the watchers and transported upward through the dome's 7 gates. This energy is referred to as Nam, Ti, La, which translates to the power of the living. The text states that the dome was designed not only to contain humanity, but also to concentrate and harvest this emotional energy for use by the Anunnaki. This explains why human history repeats the same patterns. We are being farmed. The removal of the dome would end this harvest. The Watchers will resist. The name Enlil, Z. Gur appears in 6 other tablets, always in the context of boundary enforcement. He is described as the architect of separation, the one who divided the waters above from the waters below, the one who placed the firmament to keep the gods separate from mankind. But one tablet, IM 76,880, contains a passage that scholars have never been able to explain. It says, Enlil, Z, Gur, built the dome, not under the orders of Anu, but in defiance of another god, a god named Enki. The text describes a conflict between Enlil, Z, Gur, and Enki over whether humanity should remain contained or be allowed to ascend. Enki argued for liberation. Enlil, Z, Gur argued for control, for permanent containment. Anu sided with Enlil, Z, Gur, the dome was built, and Enki was exiled, but the text says Enki left behind a gift, a hidden key embedded in human DNA, a frequency code that would allow humanity to unlock the dome from the inside without waiting for the celestial alignment. The text calls this code the serpent memory, a reference to Enki's symbol, and it says the code can be activated through specific sound frequencies combined with focused intention. This is why nearly every ancient spiritual tradition includes chanting, drumming, or tonal meditation. They are all attempts to activate the serpent memory, to trigger the internal key, to escape the dome before the timer runs out. The serpent memory is described in tablet CBS 10,996 as a dormant sequence within what modern science calls junk DNA, the 98% of human genetic material that appears to serve no biological function. The tablet states that this sequence was placed there by Enki as a failsafe, a way for humanity to override the dome's control systems without external intervention. The activation process involves sustained exposure to specific harmonic frequencies, typically in the range of 432 Hz to 528 Hz, combined with focused visualization of ascending through layers of reality. The text warns that partial activation without proper preparation can cause severe psychological destabilization, which is why mystery schools throughout history have required years of training before initiating students into higher practices. The full activation of the serpent memory results in what the tablet calls the opening of the inner eye, a state where the individual can perceive the dome directly, see the watchers, and navigate the reincarnation gate consciously. Once this state is achieved, the individual is no longer subject to forced recall. They can choose whether to reincarnate or to exit the system entirely. The final passage of Tablet K.3657 contains a warning that was deliberately obscured in the British Museum translation. The original Sumerian reads, "When the great roof cracks, those who have eyes will see what was hidden. Those who have prepared will rise. Those who remain will be returned to the clay, and the harvest will end. But the watchers will not leave willingly." This passage describes a conflict, a final confrontation between ascending humanity and the entities who have maintained the dome for millennia. The text does not say humanity will win, it says humanity will be tested. And the outcome depends on how many individuals have activated the serpent memory before the alignment occurs. If the number is too low, the watchers will successfully delay the unsealing. If the number reaches critical mass, the dome will crack, regardless of resistance. So what does this mean for you? If the tablets are correct, and the dome is real, and the countdown is approaching completion, then every human alive right now is standing at a crossroads. You can continue living within the perceptual prison, unaware that the walls even exist. Or you can begin the process of activating the serpent memory, raising your frequency, and preparing for the unsealing. The tablets make it clear. This is not a passive event. You do not get to wait and see what happens. The unsealing will sort humanity into two groups: those who can perceive and navigate the new reality, and those who cannot. And the sorting happens automatically, based on your vibrational state at the moment the dome cracks. There is no judgment, no divine decree, just resonance. If your frequency matches the new reality, you transition smoothly. If it doesn't, you get returned to the clay. Reset, memory wiped, sent back into another cycle. This is not a moral test. This is a frequency test. And the tablets provide the instructions for passing it. The instructions are scattered across the 12 tablets, but they all describe the same process. First, you must become aware that the dome exists. Awareness breaks the first layer of the spell. Second, you must quiet the lower frequencies within yourself: fear, anger, greed, despair. These frequencies anchor you to the mud. Third, you must practice sustaining higher frequencies: gratitude, compassion, awe, creative flow. These frequencies begin to crack the dome from the inside. Fourth, you must share the knowledge carefully, only with those who are ready to hear it. Premature sharing triggers the watchers. And fifth, you must trust that the unsealing is already in motion. The countdown is not something you control, it is something you prepare for. The Sumerian tablet K.3657 was not meant to be found by accident. It was placed in the Library of Ashurbanipal, deliberately, as part of a larger archive of forbidden knowledge that the Assyrian king collected from conquered cities. He knew these texts contained information that would be dangerous in the wrong hands, but he also knew they contained information that humanity would eventually need. The tablet sat in the British Museum for over a century, because no one wanted to translate it fully. When they finally did, they classified the implications. But the knowledge got out anyway. It always does. And now you have it. The dome is real, the builder is named, the countdown is running, and the unsealing is coming. Whether you are ready or not,